President Donald J. Trump is doing everything in his power to end the Russia-Ukraine war, get back money from Zelensky and Ukraine, and Zelensky seems to be kicking against the pricks as he tries to drag Europe into a deeper war. To help me go through all this, I have retired Colonel John Mills. Colonel Mills, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you, Stephen. Always an honor to be on your show.
All right. The last time you were with me, you had to jet off to testify about some military stuff. Today, it sounds like we have a little bit more time. I want to understand from your perspective. It seems like President Trump is mostly talking about Putin and Russia, not Ukraine. Is this because he believes he needs to cut Ukraine out in order to negotiate the end of this war? Is this because Zelensky is being stubborn and doesn't want the war to end? What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I think this is very interesting. I think the lead, and I don't know if lead is spelled L-E-A-D or L-E-D-E. I don't care what the AP style guide says, but the lead is being buried on this story. The initial discussions have been with Russia about Russia. Ukraine wasn't even part of the topic. And I always read, whenever there's something at a meeting like this, there's always an issuance from State Department or Department of Defense. And I read that. And people go, oh, that's not really what was talked about. No. Everybody needs to read the official documents released to the public, because that is what was discussed. And what is interesting, there was 4 points, okay? And I think the two most critical is, one, we're going to staff up the American embassy in Moscow and the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., because both have been depleted by years of expulsions. They're essentially skeleton staffed. Okay, that's, if we're going to have relations with a country, we have to kind of reset these things. Bullet 3 out of the U.S. State Department communique, I think everybody has missed this. It says that we agree to talk about future opportunities for American-Russian geopolitical cooperation and economic cooperation. So none of this has been about Ukraine. And I think there's been a gross misunderstanding by everybody out there what's going on. There will be opportunities where President Trump will talk to Zelensky, just like he's talked to Putin a couple of times, and now Rubio and Mike Waltz, and then also our Middle East, Whitbeck, our Middle East envoy for the president. This was a historic first step to try to peel the Russians away from China. Everybody's missed the story on this. This actually has nothing to do about Ukraine so far. This is about trying to peel the Russians away from China. Just for those old enough to remember, when Nixon and Kissinger did their gambit to try to peel China away from the Soviet Union. Now, in hindsight, it didn't work out so well. A lot of issues with that. At the time, we looked at Kissinger as a hawk, whereas now we really understand he was a globalist. But this is historic, what's going on. So everybody has missed the story on what's really going on so far. They haven't even talked about settling the fighting in Ukraine yet.
Okay, so let me make sure that I understand this. So Marco Rubio, the others, they weren't even there to talk about Ukraine. This is about future trade with Russia and making them like an economic partner so that we don't want to kill each other versus just ending the war in Ukraine?
Yes, absolutely. The meeting in Saudi Arabia, hosted by the Saudis, appreciate them helping out on this, was just everybody. I just asked they read the State Department communiques. This was not about settling the conflict in Ukraine. Now, we're going to get to that, and we're going to discuss those things. But one of the first steps, and Rubio just came out in another interview. I released a story on this in Gateway Pundit on Monday. Breitbart must have been reading it. I love the people at Breitbart, but they ran over and immediately asked for an interview with Rubio, and Rubio flat out said it. we are trying to peel away Russia from China. Now, will it work out? Is that wise? Those are different questions. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I've done some pieces in Substack about this. The real supervillain in the post-Soviet Union Russia relationship with the U.S., it really goes back to the 90s and Madeleine Albright, where when Russia was an abject disaster, on their knees, totally prostrate, totally powerless. And what did Madeleine Albright do? Instead of reaching out and creating a historic rapprochement, she decided to bravely step forward and kick the Russians in the teeth in the 90s. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why did she do that? Why did she, of all things? And I was on the ground in Bosnia as a young army captain trying to do the peace stabilization in Bosnia. And there was U.S. forces, there was Russian forces, and I learned the abject hatred that U.S. aid, which at that time was part of State Department, and State Department had for the Russians. They hated the Russians. Why is that? Why is that?
Yeah. So I'm younger than a lot of the people that run Washington, D.C., but I've asked many people over the last 3 years as I've covered the war, why do we hate Russia? And not one of them knew why. And then you have President Trump saying, these are two great nations. They helped us to defeat Hitler. We need to reopen communication with them. So we used to trade gold and oil and other natural resources. Now I see Trump open to that idea. I also see Vladimir Putin saying, hey, if you guys want rare earth minerals, we have them for sale. So to me, this looks like a keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And if we trade and benefit from each other, and we're not worried about launching nuclear bombs at each other, we might actually have a chance of stability and peace between the two countries.
Sounds pretty logical and reasonable. Therefore, it's rejected. I mean, it's, yeah. This is the craziness. And I'm not a Russia fan. I'm not a Russia hater. I'm an America firster. I look at this all from an America first perspective. We do have to explain this hatred for Russia. And when the Obama folks was in power, I was a sworn U.S. government civilian, careerist inside the Pentagon. And it always baffled me with the Obama folks. Why is Russia now the enemy? I go, where were you guys during the Cold War? During the Cold War, the same Obama ilk, said, oh, you're a bunch of conspiracy theorists. The communists are not a danger. The Soviet Union is not a danger. But now they're the enemy, that they're the Russians. I don't get it. Well, I think, and my thesis is, Madeleine Albright and the globalists, they realized, hey, Russia's a nothing nowadays. They're worthless. We're going to spend our time doing global peacekeeping operations. And then we've also learned this great opportunity for money laundering, such as Haiti. And those Russians, the organized crime, there's really no difference between the Russians, the Soviets, and Russian organized crime. It's all the same thing. It's like those guys they're an annoyance, and they're just going to get in the way of us doing money laundering. So we're just going to push those pathetic Russians to the side. In fact, we're not going to push them. They're now the enemy because we don't want them to cut in on our money laundering operation. That we learned the wonderful opportunities in Haiti, even Somalia. And remember, and USAID was broken out as an independent agency about 98 or 99, but USAID was part of State Department up until that time. And like I said, in Bosnia, I learned all these bizarre things about USAID and State Department, and for some reason, Russia was on the enemies list. I think my thesis is we didn't want the Russians getting involved, getting in the way of our nascent money laundering art form.
Interesting. Okay. Speaking of money laundering, what do you think President Zelensky means when he says We've only gotten a fraction of the money that Biden promised us, and we can't account for it. Is this money laundering happening in Ukraine? We've all seen the headlines: cyber attacks on our power grids, drones in the sky, violent attacks on everyday Americans. The ugly truth is no leader, no system can protect you from everything. And the last thing I want is to be standing in line depending on help that may never come. And when crisis hits, food is always the first casualty. Everyone needs it and panics when they can't get it. Now, that's why I've made sure my family is prepared with MyPatriotSupply. Their 4-week emergency food kit gives you the nutrition you need to stay strong in a crisis. With 2,000 calories per day and 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals, this kit keeps you going when every meal matters. Right now, they're offering $50 off their 4-week food kit. Go to preparewithgardner.com now to grab yours. Don't put this off. Now is the time to prepare. That's preparewithgardner.com to get your 4-week food kit today.
Well, first of all, in all defense, I know the Ukrainians have not received all the money amounts that the Biden team was shouting they were getting. Oh yeah, I would say easily 50% of the amounts being shouted by the Biden. We have no idea where it went to, and I can assure you the Ukrainians did not receive that. Okay, now of the monies Ukraine did receive, I would say the break point is December 2023, because this is what I was always saying: we never give out aid without an inspector general. I don't care who it is, the closest ally ever, the United Kingdom. We don't give out aid without an inspector general to conduct oversight of the aid. So let's just say out of the bazillion dollars that went to Ukraine, I mean, you can't get an accurate number from anybody. It was such a mess. And having worked in the Joint Staff and the OSD and the White House, you got a bunch of young staffers just making up these numbers on PowerPoints. Nobody's keeping a spreadsheet. I mean, are those new dollars? Are those committed dollars? Are they I mean, nobody understands the financial bookkeeping here. And so you got just numbers being shouted out left and right. Nobody knows what they're talking about. But let's just say 50% probably never existed or never made it to Ukraine and got laundered right off the front end. Okay. Now, of that got to Ukraine, I would say he is definitely culpable and accountable for what happened before December, what he did receive. I'm talking about Zelensky, what he did receive before December 2023. Okay. Now let's just say 50% of what people are shouting about did get to Ukraine. Okay, President Zelensky, what happened to that 50% that you did get? Now, if you noticed, things radically changed after the appointment of an inspector general. Now, we're finding out that, President Trump has fired most of the inspector generals in the U.S. government because this grotesque malfeasance of money going out the door from the Treasury without proper coding. I mean, this blows my mind. Every inspector general should be fired because of that. But I would say, you still got to have some kind of inspector general. It was the DOD inspector general who became dual-hatted as the inspector general for Ukraine, and just the specter of an inspector general being appointed, accountability got better. It wasn't perfect, but of monies that did arrive in Ukraine, at least we had a designated face, and the Ukrainians and internationals and everybody dipping their beak said, now we have an inspector general. We got to be a lot more careful. So I would say the break point is December 2023, because that's when that's I said, hey, we never give out aid without an inspector general. But now we have to make sure we have trustworthy inspector generals. So, but so that's, I'm trying to be dispassionate, I am an America firster on all these matters. I'm not trying to be on one side or the other side. And yeah, before December 2023, of the monies that did get to Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, we do need an accounting.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think Trump realizes we may never get that money back? We may never get that accounting. We may never get those answers. And this is why he's going after their mineral rights?
I think, in all fairness, and that was a second, even everything, because it was unclear, and shame on us, but was this a grant, which Zelensky is asserting it's a grant? Well, I don't think we ever defined what it was. Now, a grant illegally implies it's not to, it's you get it. We're not expecting to be paid back. But remember, in World War II, the UK, we gave everything lend-lease. It was a loan expected to be paid back. And you know what? The Brits actually, I think it was into the 90s, they actually paid off their World War II debts. But that's the second part. We never give away aid without an inspector general, and grants should be a very small percentage. It should be a loan. And okay, so we gave it away in an unclear fashion, Mr. Zelensky. We saved your bacon. Yeah, we'd like some minerals. We're not, I fought in, war on terror and the first Gulf War also. I think it's offensive that we all the blood and treasure. Now, I don't buy into this, well, we went to war for oil, because we got zero oil out of it. Zero, nothing. So anybody, we just did it for oil. No, it's actually not true. And it's insulting. We should get something out of it, because we always should look at these things as an America First angle here. So I think we got zero out of Iraq. We got zero out of Afghanistan. I think we need to claw back some of the funds and say, okay, Mr. Zelensky, yeah, it was unclear. Let's just be honest. It was unclear of the monies you did receive. Just remind Mr. Zelensky he's alive and in power because of U.S. resources largely. Yes, we do want and expect some minerals. Absolutely.
I mean, Trump famously was beating the drum when Obama was president. Get that oil, get us something for this war, or get out. Like, we should not be in this war, but if we are, at least get something for it. So, I mean, it just totally makes sense with his style that he would want something. Biden left all of this on the table. It was ambiguous. Trump is saying, let me get crystal clear. We want something for helping you, because this is a European war that we have nothing to do with. You're not even NATO, so you guys need to give us something back. Okay, let me bring it back to the Western Hemisphere. What do you know about President Trump going after the Mexican cartel in Mexico and the other countries they're hiding in around the world? I know he desperately wants to end all the fentanyl death that comes up through Mexico. He's still talking about a 25% tariff. The border, I mean, I'm reading that they're not even getting people at the border anymore. What do you know about the U.S. Army and Trump and the Mexican cartel?
Well, it's already been announced, and just I always try to be, again, fair and honest. They're actually, during the Biden administration in 2023, there was an agreement signed for U.S. Special Forces to conduct training inside of Mexico to create especially their Marines and their Navy are their most trustworthy of their totally corrupt narco state, but they're the most trustworthy. But nothing happened. President Trump comes in January 20th, one of his first executive orders, the cartels are now a designated terrorist group, or to be technical, that is a task to Secretary Rubio to run the process and ratify and say, yes, these groups should be called terrorist groups. Well, that's essentially done. Yes. So we do have 7 Special Forces Group, which is U.S. Army Special Forces. That's the one that's really focused on the Americas of the Special Forces groups. They are in country conducting training. It's also been reported 2 different things. One, the CIA is doing drone flights. Now, I find this kind of interesting because the CIA a number of years ago had gotten out of the Predator and Reaper business. That's just not their style. When they're done with something, they pass it off or just shut it down. Well, they passed them all to Air Force. So I'm assuming there's a process. I'm not going to use the term because the terms are classified, but that the CIA is borrowing back from the Air Force some of their drones. We got drones flying over Mexico. Now, there's other reports that we've been flying manned aircraft along the coast and also over parts of Mexico. Bottom line, we're headed toward a teachable moment for the cartels. So, and I think it's not going to end well. Whoever gets caught in this on the cartel side. Now, one of my basic questions, and I did an article in Gateway Pundit again, is there's a number of Chinese nationals that by name have been identified by DOJ when they weren't spying on teachers, parents at school board meetings, but they've named a number of Chinese nationals that have been in China, in Mexico, overseeing the cartels by name. It's been published. Okay. So my question is, what happens when we make an example out of the next meeting of the cartels and a whole bunch of Chinese nationals turn up, get killed? So something's about to happen. Mark my words. I don't know anything. I don't have access to any insider information, but I do know a bit about planning and implementing operations like this. And we're on our pathway to make I call it a teachable moment.
Okay. So I would guess that these Reaper drones are gathering intel, communications, photos, looking for pattern recognition of movement. Probably satellites are also being implemented to see movement in and out of areas. Is that correct thinking?
Yeah, all of the above. This would mean what's called our intelligence priority stack has been changed. So, we're already going after all the perverts inside the IC. So that priority is out the window. They can't be in their perverted group chats anymore. DNI Tulsi Gabbard shut that down, but this is now one of the you would call it above the cut line. This is one of the priorities is doing. It's called advanced force operational preparation of the battle space. So we're using everything, all forms of intelligence to size this up, and then we're going to make a decision. You know what? Out of all these opportunities in this target-rich environment, we're going to make an example out of this one. And then we set the date. We give run the approval process, and then we make the hit, and then we'll see what publicly we learn about it.
I have no military experience, so let me just run a scenario. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, but just from watching how they've dealt with Soleimani and other people, could it be that they gather, the patterns of movements, the chatter, the intel, and they make a strike on part of the Mexican cartel when the Chinese people aren't there, just in case they don't want to pull China into something just yet?
That's just something what we would call our national command authorities. That's a decision they'd have to make. Maybe they want the Chinese to feel the pain. Maybe they want to make a teachable moment for the Chinese also. So, hey, maybe it's a good idea for you folks to not be helping these overseeing these narco-terrorist groups. This is what happens to your folks. They go to pieces just like Soleimani.
Okay. All right. I saw that Kash Patel, he's now over the FBI. His first formal investigation is into former FBI Director James Comey with the Russiagate hoax, using what they called honeypot workers. I guess these are women that were deployed to use sexual advances to try to corrupt Trump administrators. But the one that caught my attention, Trump holds his first cabinet meeting, and somebody asks about finally investigating the Afghanistan withdrawal. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says that, yes, we are opening an investigation. People will be looked at. There will be consequences for people that are still in the military. Is this a good thing? Do we need to understand what went wrong with Afghanistan in order to make a smarter, better military?
Absolutely. And the U.S. military at its best is a meritocracy, and we have to always be accountable and transparent for the good and the bad. And we lost 13 Americans. It was shameful what happened. We allowed who knows how many Afghans into this country who we don't know who they were. And there were Afghans who helped America. So we don't know if these were friendly. We have no idea who these people were. And we essentially ceded an incredible amount of military equipment to the Taliban and essentially opened the door to China. So there has to be accountability for this.
Okay. You and I talked about the Panama Canal and Greenland. I had other military people on that told me Trump was wasting his time, that this was not good. Marco Rubio right away deployed to Panama. Things are already turning around. They say we're dropping our contract with China. We'll re-up. Things will be better for America. Did that go how you thought it would? And was the outcome good for America?
I think the outcome has been very good. I did not expect Rubio's first trip to be to the Americas. I think that's refreshing. For decades, we have abandoned our own front yard, backyard, side yards. We became a ghost. I mean, I think first and foremost is our homeland and our immediate front yard. I mean, this is ridiculous. President Molino of Panama, he's a populist, and he's actually pretty pro-U.S. When he came in and was sworn in July, he was dealing with a Biden team that literally the number one priority of the U.S. Embassy at that time in Panama was transgenderism. You know, President Molino wants roads, he wants bridges, he wants infrastructure, and all he gets from America is lectures on transgenderism. Okay, and I've looked through the website. I've looked at the different significant things that were being reported under Ambassador Ponte, the U.S. ambassador to Panama. It was repulsive, especially when the host country wants roads and bridges and support and help, and they get transgenderism. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this stuff up. So I think it's good, and I'm really glad about it, and I think it's important. And Molino, one of the first thing he ends the long-term concession to China on the ports on each end, and he also starts an investigation and essentially an inspector general audit of the books of that and other the fourth bridge over the canal. The expansion of the main international airport in Panama City. So he's looking into these things, and all they want is a signal that America cares. That's all they want.
Yeah. Well, I was also shocked that was the first place that Rubio was deployed. I think it was a smart move. In the end, I think that will prove to be a very good move by Trump and his team. Okay, final question. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. Just last night, Tulsi Gabbard said on Fox News that CNN is the propaganda arm of the U.S. intelligence agencies, and she plans to put a stop to that. What do you think she means by that? Is that where they're leaking information or narratives, or what do you think she was thinking?
No question about it. CNN, as dismal as its ratings were, had a special relationship with the deep state personnel and the Biden team. No question about it. Even though they had horrible ratings, that was clear. Were they being leaked to? You bet they were. Were they being always getting the first scoop on a story? Of course they were. And, so that's really refreshing to see her cut off that relationship. It's so obvious, who's being leaked to.
Okay. Well, I wish all of them luck. I'm sure excited about Kash Patel. There's so many investigations that MAGA Republicans want answers for. I didn't expect the James Comey thing to come up, but I think he realizes he was a linchpin in this story that could have ripped the country apart, could have put us into war with Russia, and Trump wants this stuff resolved so that our country can move forward. Colonel, I always appreciate you coming on. I know you do a lot of research to keep up to date on all of this stuff, so thank you for that and your service to our country. I'm going to put a link to your Substack as well as your X and your book over on Amazon. I appreciate you coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I always enjoy it, and thank you for having me on the show. Looking forward to doing it again.